Hello students, today we're going to be talking about how genes are passed on from the parent to the child. And in order to do this, we're going to use a hypothetical population of monsters. And these monsters have various traits, but the trait we're going to look at is the body shape. And in this population of monsters, the only two possible body shapes are oval or triangle. Now, the oval will be represented with a capital B since it is our dominant trait, and the triangle-shaped body will be represented with a lowercase b since it is our recessive trait. The tool used to determine the probability of inheritance is called the Punnett Square. And in this case, we're going to have a heterozygous father, so he has both the dominant allele and the recessive allele, and we're going to have a heterozygous mother who has the dominant allele and the recessive allele as well. Now, both of these have the phenotype of the round body, but because they each have a dominant allele, and you only need one in order to show the dominant phenotype. So these are round-bodied monster parents, and they're going to have a monsterling. Now, there are four possibilities represented with this 2x2 square. The first possibility is that the offspring inherits the dominant trait from the father and the dominant allele from the mother, giving it two dominant alleles. The second possibility is that it inherits the recessive trait from the father and the dominant allele from the mother, giving it capital B, lowercase b. The third possibility is that it inherits the dominant from the father and the recessive from the mother. And then lastly, it could inherit the recessive from the father and the recessive from the mother. And these are the four possible genotypes or gene combinations. Now, there are always three possible genotypes. Now, you notice I said four, but there are really only three because with the heterozygous cross, we get two of the same, the capital B, lowercase b. So the two capital B's, that's known as the homozygous dominant. The capital B, lowercase b, or one dominant and one recessive allele is known as heterozygous. And then lastly, the two recessive alleles combined are known as homozygous recessive. If you look at the probability of inheritance, now I should be clear. This does not mean if these parents had four children that they would have one of each of these possibilities. Each child has an equal chance of inheriting one of these genotypes. So they could have four monsterlings that are all homozygous dominant. That could happen. They could have four offspring that are homozygous recessive. That could also happen. Or they could have one of each of these possibilities or any combination. But in each instance, there is a 25% chance of being homozygous dominant because there's a 1 in 4 chance that the offspring will inherit both dominant alleles. If you look closely, there are two opportunities or two chances that the offspring will inherit the dominant and recessive alleles, and that is called heterozygous. So there's a 50% chance of that. And then lastly, there's a 25% chance that the offspring could be homozygous recessive. These are the genotypes. Let's talk for just a moment about phenotypes. Now, phenotypes is what the monster baby will look like. Will it have a round body or will it have a triangle body? In this case, there's a 25% chance of homozygous dominant, which will show the round body trait because it has at least one dominant allele. The heterozygous, although it has a recessive allele, that is masked by the dominant trait, so it will also show a round body. That means that there's a 75% chance, if you add up the 25% chance for homozygous and the 50% chance for heterozygous, there's a 75% chance that that baby will have a round body, the phenotype round body, which leaves us a 25% chance that the baby will receive the two recessive alleles and show the recessive trait. The only instance where you show the recessive trait is when you have two recessive alleles, and that is the triangle body type in this case. So a 25% chance of that. There are other possibilities in terms of crosses. This is two heterozygous parents. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at a heterozygous father, dominant and recessive allele, and a homozygous dominant mother with two dominant alleles. So what are the possibilities in this case? Well, this monsterling could inherit the dominant from the father and the dominant from the mother, the recessive from the father and the dominant from the mother, the dominant from the father and the dominant from the mother, and again the recessive from the father and the dominant from the mother. Now you can see in this case, in terms of genotypes, we still have our three possible genotypes. However, there's a 50% chance that the offspring will be homozygous dominant, and there's a 50% chance that the offspring will be heterozygous, leaving us a 0% chance that the offspring will be homozygous recessive. It's just not possible because the mother has no recessive gene to pass on to her offspring. That offspring can only get a dominant allele from the mother. Now, in terms of phenotypes, those babies are going to either be homozygous dominant, showing the round body phenotype, or heterozygous, showing the round body phenotype. So there's a 0% chance that they will have a triangle body and a 100% chance that they're going to have a round body. So these two parents could not have a triangle-shaped body offspring. Now, if you go back to the heterozygous and heterozygous, what do we have? This answers the question as to how maybe two parents with straight hair can have a curly-haired baby, or two parents with brown eyes can have a blue-eyed baby, because of those recessive alleles that have been masked in the parents but can show in the homozygous recessive of the child. Now, there are a couple other possibilities in terms of crosses. We could cross a homozygous recessive father with a homozygous dominant mother. Now, I've already filled out this chart, but you can see that because the father only has recessive genes to inherit and the mother only has dominant genes to inherit, the only possible outcome, there's a 4 in 4 probability, so 100% probability that this offspring will be heterozygous. And because it's heterozygous and has at least one dominant allele, it can only have the phenotype round body. So these two parents can only have a heterozygous child with a round body feature, even though the father, interestingly, has a triangle-shaped body. With this mother, he can only have round-bodied children. Another possibility is a homozygous recessive father and a heterozygous mother. And of course, any of these would be the same if you switched the genotypes of the mother and father. So we could have a homozygous recessive mother and a heterozygous father, and the odds would be the same. So in this case, the child can only inherit a recessive allele from the father and could inherit either a dominant or recessive allele from the mother, giving us a 50% possibility of being heterozygous. Whoops, I colored those squares wrong. I'll fix that in the slide presentation. And a 50% chance that the child could be homozygous recessive. So either capital B, lowercase b, or lowercase b, there's a 50% chance, which means there's a 50% chance that the child will show the phenotype of the round body, being heterozygous, and a 50% chance that the child will show the phenotype of the triangle body, being homozygous recessive. So there's half and half chance of the monsterling being either round-bodied or triangle-bodied. And the other possibility is that we cross a homozygous dominant father with a homozygous dominant mother. These children could only inherit dominant traits from the father and dominant traits from the mother, giving us a 100% chance that these children will be homozygous dominant and have a round body phenotype. I hope this helps you understand the Punnett Square. Our activity on Wednesday will include monster traits, other monster traits, and it will help create our monsters. It's a really fun activity. I hope I see you on the Google meeting. Have a great day.